1.
Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. I am Shogun, and joining me today is my very good friend AinSoph. AinSoph is one of the OGs, the original gangsters of the Roundtable server. He was here since the very beginning, and he was, I believe, my third podcast ever. So we've now done hundreds of podcasts, I think, 300 at least. And the third one was with AinSoph. AinSoph has the unfortunate distinction of being the most unlucky man I've ever met. He has suffered a incredible string of horrible hardships, tragedies, and setbacks in terms of his mental health, his physical health, and his personal life that I deeply empathize with and have always felt, compassionate sorrow because of the amount of suffering you've had to go through. But also enormous admiration and respect for the grace and dignity and wisdom and compassion with which you have endured those incredible hardships, which I'm quite certain would have easily destroyed me many times over. And I think 99% of people would not have survived them the way you have. And I would also give you the credit of being probably the most benevolent person on the server, maybe up there with Kasheka, for, really just a bag of sugar and spice and everything nice. So, please join us on the Roundtable Discord server. We'll get into this wonderful story because it does have a very happy ending and a silver lining in progress. But we are on the Roundtable Discord server. We are on YouTube. We are on BitChute. You can find hundreds of great podcasts. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Every single like, every single positive comment, every single subscription helps. Also, if you check the announcements channel, you'll see we now have a new video series with a brand new YouTube channel managed by AinSoph himself. I apologize for my cat who wants to go outside. So join that because that's where we have our new video series. We have a great podcast up already with Zu about Anzu, the Sumerian deity. Very interesting stuff. A great podcast with a talking cobra. You don't want to miss that. Also known as Open Eye Project. And now AinSoph's podcast. And we have a new Twitch managed by Neverborn. We were not yet able to stream anything, but keep an eye on that, and we'll be streaming podcasts in the days to come. Live videos, that is. Also, make sure you've listened entirely to the Andy podcast that is available on RT Podcast and on announcements. That's with my ex-wife, mandatory viewing. And especially make sure you listen to the whole server meeting recorded today. Very important. Don't miss it. Also available in announcements on RT Podcast. Sorry for the overly long introduction, my friend. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Today, I'm doing very well, thank you, Shogun. Doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Good. I'm very glad to have you. It's glad to have you on the podcast. I'm looking forward to our conversation. You're looking well. You're looking handsome and good. So, the story, I think, begins, so I'm going to just go from my memory of all the conversations we ask you to tell parts of the story and what I think is a narrative sequence.
Okay.
So, one thing that I understand that happened to you at some point in your life is that you were drugged by somebody, a friend of yours or something, gave you some kind of drug. Is that correct? Without your knowledge?
That's correct.
Tell us that story.
Okay, so that was December 31st, 2000. And I was at a nightclub. I was 21, young and obnoxious, thinking I was on top of the world, had the best job in the world. Working for an internet security company, chasing hackers, developing, anti-Trojan solutions. And my life was going sweet and, very arrogant and egotistical. I thought, let's just celebrate. Let's have a night of good fun. That time, I asked my friend to get me a pill of MDMA. What I recall, it was nothing of the sort. It was a pill that was 4 times the size of a regular pill from what I remember. Very acidic and very toxic. And when I swallowed it, within about half an hour to an hour, my reality changed. I literally had a psychotic break in the nightclub, in the fetal position, rocking backwards and forwards. Everything was just distorted. There was no visual or audio hallucinations. It was just delusions, beliefs, paranoia. It was just more of a feeling of fear of being persecuted. And that lasted for about 3 months, intense 3 months. My friend at the time, who I was going to college with, who gave me the pill, I never saw him again from that day. He moved states within Australia. He moved over east and started working for Google, from what I remember. And there's me feeling very sorry for myself. Like, this guy was my friend and did this to me, and then he ends up getting the job of a lifetime. I just felt very, very sick in the gut about it. But in the end, I mean, just to cut that part of the story short, it was probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, in a way. I was very, as I said, I was very obnoxious, egotistical. I wasn't the best sort of character. Mistreat people, backstab them. It was just a stupid teenage sort of attitude that I had towards life. So this experience allowed me to sort of have a form of self-reflection. So when you're paranoid, you're worried about what other people think of you. You feel persecuted because of what you believe you've done. And that just totally changed my attitude towards myself and towards other people around me. And that's the mental health journey start of a diagnosis of paranoid schizoaffective disorder, as well as borderline personality disorder. So I had tendencies of self-harm, shifting sort of personality traits based on emotions. So I'd have a certain sub-personality or based on a specific emotion. I'd be a certain person based on an emotion. So it was very horrible, basically, initial 12 years, because I had that belief of the persecution for 12 years straight. It wasn't just my friend drugged me. It got to the point of believing the world was after me, like the Jesuits, the Catholics, the Illuminati at the end. It was just very deluded from my perspective. It was very deluded, very, very. It was a sincere belief, but it was obviously not an accurate one. And the reason I say it's not an accurate one is because I'm still here. No cop or anything has happened to me since that day that would indicate that I was being persecuted. It was just my own reality that I was creating for myself.
I understand. And as you know, many people in this server have had their own experiences with mental illness and the psychiatric system. And so, of course, there's a lot of people here who are understanding of that. So your experience was a mixture of, well, it's schizoaffective. So for those who don't know, that's a mixture of a mood disorder with a schizotypal disorder. So it's kind of like schizophrenia with elements of bipolar. Is that correct?
And that's exactly what it was. Yes, that's correct.
Right. And it's incredible the recovery that you've made, because in the entire time that I have known you, you have been remarkably lucid, wise, intelligent, and very rarely in episodes of mania or delusionality. So, to what do you attribute your remarkable recovery?
Okay, so first and foremost, I will get into this later on as well. Was meeting my wife. She was my rock. She kept me on a level plane. She even said to me when, during the first few months of courting, I told her, I said I believed I was the devil. I was that sort of in that space. And she said, I know you believe it. I don't. It doesn't matter. I still love you. And that to me was the kicker of, yeah, this woman's going to be in my life for the rest of my life. Of course, that's not the case now, but, that's what I believed back then. That was one aspect. She was very supportive, helped me a lot. She insisted on me taking my medication. I was very non-compliant. I'm still not compliant with medication. I don't believe I'm suffering any sort of side effects from not taking medication. But during the time when I was with her, she would feed me my medication, my pills, and make sure I stayed stable. The other thing is the intentional disbelief of previous belief systems. So, no offense to you, Shogun, to stop me believing I was the devil, I had to stop believing in Christianity. So I had to cut that out just so I did not associate myself with any sort of character in the Bible. Because it was a big thing for me back then. I'd read it and I'd say, oh, I've got these sort of traits of this particular person, and I would associate with certain characters. And one dad Jesus, one dad Satan. It was just tiring. So it's and I don't feel the same way about that now. But that was a sort of a method of doing to stop me from certain types of behaviors and actions and beliefs. So that would help in the end, the triggers of certain delusions of being persecuted for whatever reason, intentional disbeliefs of misleading, basically things that would trigger me.
That's a very interesting strategy. And as I'm sure you know, religious delusions, such as identifying with characters such as God, the devil, Jesus, or the Antichrist, is extraordinarily common in psychosis. And
Yes.
it's a very common delusionality in the Bible, is a very, as you know, psychedelic and hallucinogenic book at times. And it can indeed, for some people, and at some times, play into or feedback with mental health episodes, which can also cause hyper-religiosity, meaning an excessive fixation on religious things. So
And I
that's
did
very
have that.
interesting.
So yeah, I did have that form of mentality, um, in the sense of religious ideologies and beliefs about it. It was very intense for me. So yeah, it was a tactic that I discovered myself to say, well, if it's causing me to believe these sorts of things, maybe I should study flowers, and maybe I could be a tulip instead. It's just something totally different that would take my mind and my fixation on certain things in a certain direction.
Yes, makes sense. It's a good idea.
Mm.
So, unfortunately, your mental health struggles, severe though they were only the beginning of your sorrows, so to speak, your
Yeah.
struggle. I think one of the most catastrophic things that's happened in your life was the event leading to the loss of your foot,
Mm-hmm.
and with it, perhaps part of your leg. So, please tell us that unfortunate story.
Okay, so I believe I started recovering from my mental health ideologies in 2012, 2013. But I did have an experience of side effects of the medication I was using back then. So having antipsychotics, especially one medication named olanzapine, allowed me to gain about 60 kilos in 3 months. So that was the initial 3 months that I was experiencing this psychotic episode, this trigger. I gained 60 kilos within that 3 months. I was very slim, very athletic, and putting on that much weight in that short amount of time gave me sort of like well, it gave me diabetes for starters, a sort of allergic reaction to insulin and the hormones associated with absorbing the sugars into my cells. So it wasn't just diabetes, it was something associated with that as well, which inhibited me from losing weight naturally. My metabolism was stuffed up from the antipsychotics. Having diabetes led to heart problems as well. So it just one thing after another. It spiraled and got worse. Having lost my eyesight at one point, but that was after myself stepping on some what's called double Gs. There's these things in Australia called double Gs. They're prickles with 3 horns or pricks on them, and I stepped on a bush of double Gs. So my feet were coated with these prickles. The funny thing is, I didn't feel them. They were really sharp, really deep in my feet. But because I had diabetes, I had neuropathy, couldn't feel them due to the nerve damage of diabetes and the sugar just eating away at the nerves. I did not feel them. And having gone to emergency to see what could be done about removing them, I had 2 doctors, one on each foot, taking about 2 to 3 hours removing each individual thistle out of my foot. It was just it needed to be done straight away. Couldn't wait to go into a sort of operating theatre because of the potential of them being poisonous and having suffered more complications. But in the end, it didn't matter. I developed an infection from the little toxic poisons from them, and I had an operation on my left foot because I had an ulcer that appeared on my heel, which then they had to scoop out all the messy meat and flesh. So I had one problem in my left foot. The right foot collapsed due to what's it called? Charcot foot. as well as with infection from the poisons of the double Gs. And because my foot collapsed, my ankle, my inner ankle would touch the floor, like when it finally collapsed. It was that sort of like distorted and disjointed, and good that I couldn't feel pain, but it looked horrible. So I was taken to emergency. They made the instant decision to amputate, and that was it. Went into theatre the next day, and woke up with a missing right foot. That was an awesome experience, waking up to ketamine. I mean, geez, that was. I have to look at the positives, you know, having an experience, a sort of semi-psychedelic ketamine experience, going to the K-hole, monitored by doctors, making sure I wasn't going to flip out too much. But the pain was so intense, I needed it. And yeah, that was the beginning of being an amputee. And that happened in 2019. Exactly 1 year and a couple of months later, I was no longer married. I had been with my wife for 16 years, and just through the experience of being an amputee, as well as I suppose her being tired of having to deal with my previous mental health issues, you know, I now have this sort of regretful feeling that I couldn't believe I put her through that. But at the same time, till death do us part didn't seem to mean anything. So she ended up leaving. Understand why it was very difficult for her to sort of look after me. A 40-year-old husband needing help to go to the bathroom. It's sort of, my dignity was shot. She couldn't deal with it, and she moved on. So that was it. That was last year.
I see. Well, yes, and that brings us to the story of your divorce, which you have brought up. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll talk about that. So why don't you just tell us the story of how your divorce came about? Like, in other words, the day of your divorce, which I understand is quite abrupt and in quite an uncompassionate manner.
Yeah. Okay. So that the actual separation, I called it the divorce because that was the day that she left. Obviously, the official divorce date will be May 4th this year. On the day she left, she warned me 2 weeks prior that she had enough and didn't want to be with me anymore. I didn't think she'd have the balls to sort of leave the way she did. Um, I had symptoms of flu-like symptoms, so I was taken to emergency for possible having COVID. Um, she said, "I'll be back. I'm going to get some smokes, and May the 4th be with you." And I thought that was a weird thing to say. It was May 4th, but this Star Wars quote just thrown in out of nowhere when she wasn't even that sort of, I don't know what she was doing. It just seemed a bit silly. It was funny, but a bit silly at the same time. And she never returned. I sent her a message. I said, "Where are you?" And she said, "I'm on a bus on the way to my mother's. I've decided to leave you. Don't call me ever again. I don't want to hear from you. Um, I'm tired of having to look after a child. I don't want to hear from you ever again. Don't call me. And please just don't call me." And I called her. I tried to. She wouldn't answer. And that was it. I was stuck at hospital, ready to come home. Not sure how I was going to get home. I had to call a taxi. The hospital paid for the fare. I didn't know where the car was at the time. But I went to the train station in the taxi, and the car was at the train station, which she obviously left there to catch a train to the city to catch a bus to her mother's. I looked to see if she left the keys there, or sorry, rather, I allowed the taxi driver to look around the car to see if the keys were in there. They weren't there, and so I asked him if he would take me to my neighbour's house. He did so, and the experience there that was a godsend. My neighbours were heavy methamphetamine users, but they had the hearts of gold. They assisted me with food. They came and helped me clean up. They were a godsend. If they weren't there, I don't know what could have happened. In that meantime, I did get the keys back in the mail. That took about a week. And I had contacted my brother who said, "Why do you always have to call me when shit hits the fan?" And I said, "I don't have anyone else's number, mate. What can I do?" Yeah. So that happened. He came and picked me up. He helped me clean up the place. And then I gave the keys back to the real estate agency, and I started living with my brother and my mother in the city. 2 weeks later, I found the house that I'm in now, and I'm currently living just with my mother. And that's where we are at this point in time. Been single for a year, have been dating a few women, 2 specifically. I don't think anything is going to happen or occur from these dating that I've had, but it's nice to know that I can still go out, have a meal, and have a yarn with someone, and talk with someone. And you guys have been a godsend. Just being on Discord, talking to my mates, and has helped and healed me a lot. And I suppose the final thing that I wanted to say with regards to the physical health and mental health is that I'm a big man, 360 pounds, I think it is, which is like 175 kilos. I need to lose weight, otherwise it won't go very well for me. So I've decided to get a recumbent hand pedaled bike, and just bear with me. I'm going to put a picture on the OB stream so that the viewers of the stream will be able to see it. And that bike is close between $5,000 to $7,000. That's the average price for these bikes, where you lay down, you use your hand to pedal and to get some sort of cardiovascular man your heartbeat going, and riding a bike. And yeah, that's where I'm up to right now. That's the present moment, and the future is looking very hopeful.
So this is a very positive note for me to connect to, because as you guys know, in the past we've done GoFundMe and fundraisers for members in the server who are in difficult situations. To say that this is a difficult situation is an understatement, and this piece of medical equipment is something that could profoundly change and indeed save AinSoph's life, because as he's hinting at, if he isn't able to lose the weight, it's likely he could die. But if he is able to lose the weight, his chances of long-term survival go up exponentially. And as he mentioned, the bikes are quite expensive, in the range of $7,000 to $25,000. Over the course of this server, we have raised over $2,000 and redistributed that, in each case, to people struggling with mental health challenges, and in some cases, other health challenges or homelessness. So I think this is a wonderful cause. Now, I asked AinSoph about it, and he said he didn't want me to do a fundraiser because he's an honorable man and he wants to try and pay for it himself. However, I'm not aware of any downside to making a fundraiser available, so that anyone who happens to hear this podcast and is moved by it and chooses to donate some amount of money could do so. I don't think that that would be a harmful thing. So with your permission, AinSoph, I would like very much to do that, because as you know, in the past, we bought a bicycle for NSA.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that fundraiser myself, but it was on the server. And we also have got him a piece of exercise equipment that is like a chin-up bar. So there's a precedent for this, and I think this is a much stronger reason than even that was, as NSA is in great health compared to AinSoph. So is that something I can have your permission to do, sir?
Yes, I would appreciate it. It would help. Mm-hmm.
It will only supplement what you're going to have to pay. It's
Yes,
probably not a thing, so it would be some amount of money, hopefully a lot, that will assist you in this difficult time. Something very meaningful and helpful for you. So if you give me permission, I would like that to be created. If Kasheka or anyone else in the room, perhaps Sign, would like to take the initiative on making that GoFundMe page, I would greatly appreciate it. I think as a Canadian, I can't do it, plus I'm bad at that kind of thing. So someone like Kasheka Sign could do that. I would appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll find someone else to do it after the podcast. So that's one. Yeah, and we'll make sure to include a link to the fundraiser on the BitChute and YouTube channels as well as advertise it and so forth in the server as we do. I estimate that we will raise quite a bit of money. And actually, if it's okay with you, can I say a prayer?
Absolutely.
Heavenly Father, God, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray on behalf of our friend AinSoph, firstly, that you would keep your strong hand of protection and healing on him, and that you would heal his body and his mind and soul. Keep him on the path of recovery and health, God, and grant him long life. Also, God, I ask that you will move the hearts of anybody in this room and anybody hearing this podcast on YouTube and BitChute to generously donate whatever they can afford to AinSoph in a spirit of love. You promise that as we do unto the least of these, so we do unto you. So this is a wonderful opportunity to assist AinSoph. I myself pledge also to support him financially this Friday when I get paid. And I just pray that you will bless him and continue to bless this server and this community, God, and especially AinSoph. Thank you for the blessing that he has been in this community, God. Keep him with us for many years to come. Amen. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Thank you. So that being said, I think I'd like to also talk about some of the positive things in your life now, of which there are many. For example, you are someone skilled and interested in technology, computers, even hacking and programming. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that started in 1995. I think it was 15. Got access to the internet in the good old 28.8K modems. I didn't even know. I bought a modem, didn't know you had to go through a service provider to access the internet. I thought, plug it in, off you go. So that was the beginning of a learning experience about computers, internet technologies, and as I said before, in the year 2000, I started my occupation in internet security, developing reverse engineering techniques for Trojan horses. I even discovered one Trojan horse, which someone submitted, reverse engineered, found hacker details in the Trojan horse itself, which gave indication of their honeypot and their botnet. So I accessed the server. There was 800 other infected computers on the server, and I wrote a little program to connect to each individual machine and send the uninstall command for the Trojan horse. I ran that, executed it. Each command was executed, and in the morning I woke up after 12 hours of running the script. About 650 of those infected computers were basically back to normal, and I say they because I don't know who they were, but whoever was running the botnet weren't very happy. Obviously, I just basically stuffed up their operation. Whether these machines were going to be used as a distributed denial of service attack, which is like flooding a computer network or computer full of data so that it can't operate or serve legitimate websites, that basically was done the gurgler, and these hackers just didn't have a leg to stand on. I actually thought one of my delusions, obviously, like my drugging occurred 3 months later. I thought I did that. This experience was connected to that. So just as a off topic, that was part of the story. But from then, I worked in sales and in telecommunications for large telcos. In Australia, there's an ISP called IINet, as well as Telstra, and I worked for both those companies in sales and technical support. That was obviously after my drugging. So during the diagnosis of schizoaffective, I'd get better, I'd work, I'd have a relapse, I'd not work. But regardless of whether I had a job or not in technology, I was always doing something. So I'd learn how to develop websites. I'd learned basic coding. I wasn't too good at that, but I did basic coding, learned website administration, learned how to create forums, learn the intricacies of, obviously creating accounts for social media and how to run them and run social media and influence websites associated with social media. So there's some just stuff associated with that. Did a lot of internet marketing, creating ebooks, and just it was really fun. It was computers are a really good thing. There's always something to do, and there was also something else associated to that, but when I remember, I'll bring it up. So.
Okay, so that is very interesting, and I know you had also planned to do some extra schooling in the future, or you're thinking about also programming. You had an idea for a virtual reality assisted um,
Mental health.
mental health program. You still interested in that project, or did you?
That went by the wayside, but the idea is still at the forefront. Just how I'm going to achieve it might be a different story. So I'll explain it, and if someone can run with it, that'd be great. So something that I experienced, a sort of a delusion that I went through, was called the Truman experience, where I believed that the world around me was like the Truman Show. My family weren't my family. My friends weren't my friends. They were all actors, and things were being done to trigger me intentionally or to help me recover intentionally. So it wasn't paranoia, but it was called pronoia, where the universe is out to help you. That's something that I learned. So if I had that experience, what's the possibility that other people went through something similar? And whilst I was in psychiatric in the psychiatric ward, which at one time I did a 6-month long-term rehabilitation, I noticed that some of the care workers and social workers would use parts of my own delusions to help me recover, whether that be to attack these thoughts intentionally or to trigger them to see my reactions and whatnot. I thought that idea would go really well, I suppose, in the real world, not just in an isolated environment, but also using technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, or even just simple actors. If you know that there's somebody who's suffering a very distinct, intense experience of delusional or psychotic behavior, and they are in the public, sort of in the public atmosphere, and you don't want them to sort of flip out, do something that may cause them to cause harm to themselves or to other people, what can the community do to assist them, help them recover? And that was through my experience of the Truman Show. So that there could be actors, and I understand it's a very sensitive issue because it could trigger them if they found out. But if there was actors that sort of came up to me and said, "Hey, Rod, do you know anything about all this hacking stuff? I was there, and just something that would help me get better, and experience, whether it be a little act or something of some sort." So that was something I wanted to get interested in. I did my research in how to go ahead with that, and that was having a degree in psychology as well, mixed with other forms of computer technology stuff. That would have been a long journey, 6 years at university, something I wasn't motivated enough to do. So that went by the wayside. But, it's still something that I would hope could be done somehow.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great idea, and especially with the enhancing degree of immersive virtual reality, the possibilities for mental health is endless. It's a hugely I see that as being a huge practical way to treat mental illness would be using virtual reality, although the details would have to be hammered out. So if that comes in the future, just remember he had the idea.
Yeah.
But another thing I want to talk to you now is about spirituality. Obviously, I'm a religious person and a Christian, but you have very interesting spiritual beliefs. Although I couldn't necessarily categorize them or define them, could you categorize or define your own beliefs in any way, or how would you describe your current orientation?
I actually found out what my belief system was called only a couple of days ago. There was a member on here, I can't remember who it was, but he brought it up, and he said it's a form of eclecticism, where basically it's a mishmash of nearly everything that can possibly exist, and it's my own ideology and belief. It's not really a dogmatic belief system, but it's sort of an acceptance of many things, and the possibility that all these things could exist. I allow them to exist, and although I don't know and can't prove them, I do have an aspect of an eclectic sort of belief system. So if there was a dogmatic spiritual belief, it'd be panentheism, and that's the idea that God exists within the physical universe as well as beyond space and time. So it encompasses everything and anything that exists. How it manifests, that's where I don't know, but pantheism allows for that. So that the universe is divine, everything that exists outside of the physical universe is divine, and that is all that exists, just the monad or the spiritual creator of everything, and we are just reflections of the greater whole. Whether that exists as Christianity, whether that exists as Judaism or any Abrahamic religion or Buddhism or Hinduism, it allows for that, but I don't sort of worship any sort of ideology in that aspect.
Right. So we've covered a lot of ground here. I'm wondering, is there anything in particular that you wanted to talk about while you have the audience and the platform?
Yeah, there's one thing. One thing that I'm very grateful for is the recent creation of what's called the NDIS, or the National Disability Insurance Scheme, by the Australian government. It existed. It didn't exist prior to 5 years ago, and although my mental health and physical health have been in decline, the government and this particular system have acknowledged that I'm actually going through something quite severe, and have provided funding as well as support for my recovery. So last year I was granted basically $110,000, $115,000. I don't have physical access to that funding, but it allows for services. It allows me to have a wheelchair. It covers those sorts of things that allow me to improve my life, and I'm very grateful for having that, because if I didn't have that, then I'd be absolutely great without a paddle. And it's a very good system to help people in my situation to move forward and recover. And I'm currently going through what's called a change of circumstances and review. My year for the NDIS, it expires in 2 months' time, but I need a change of circumstances. And that's an extra avenue of receiving funding specifically for housing. So I'll be looking for what's called the SDA, or the Special Disabilities Advantages funding, so I can get my own home. Not just to live with my mum, but to live in my own home, be independent, and have the equipment and housing built specifically for my situation. So large bathrooms, large wide open doors so I can get through with a wheelchair, supports on the roof so I can lift myself up, just things built for me and that I can pay for with my funding. And the beautiful thing is that even though I get funding, I also get the disability support, which I'll only have to pay 25% out of my income for living in my own home. So that's just great news. It allows me to live freely without the encumbrances of being restricted of income. Cash flow will be more freely accessible, and it's just a great thing to have. So yeah, I just wanted to say that's the happy ending. That's the silver lining. It allows me to live as an abled man in a disabled body, but in an environment where I can actually achieve these things.
That is a beautiful, happy ending to the story. It has a wonderful narrative completion to it. So I think that's a good place to end the formal interview. Would you like to take questions from the audience, or would you like to conclude the interview now and just go talk?
I don't mind. I'm happy to take some questions if people have anything that they want to share or ask away.
Okay. Does anyone have a question for AinSoph while he's here, or a comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thanks so much, AinSoph. I really appreciated this interview. If you ever want to do another one, you know the drill. Just send me a DM. I'll set it up anytime. I'd love to do another one anytime. And we continue to wish you the best in your recovery, in your health, and in your life. And we're glad to have you handling the Roundtable YouTube channel, the video channel, that is, on which this very podcast will be uploaded. So you can find links to that in the announcements channel. It'll be in the RT podcast channel. And you can also find all our other podcasts, hundreds of great audio podcasts on YouTube and BitChute. make sure you check out our web store. Great merchandise by scientists, amazing artists. It's got some great new designs coming out. I'm going to be buying a hoodie and a t-shirt on Friday. Like and subscribe to our videos, and join the Roundtable Discord server where you can talk to me and AinSoph and everybody else every single day, and live special events recorded and uploaded daily. So, that being said, thanks everybody. Thank you, AinSoph. God bless. Let's actually, we can stay right here since we're our video chat room, which is nice. So that is the end of the interview, and we are now back in the regular chat.